Boy, I really love Anubias. I hope this video isn't like an hour long. Well, welcome back to the small scape. Yes, I am so excited to be talking about my favorite plant in the world, Anubias. And I do agree with all my heart that with this statement that Anubias is the best aquatic plant in the world for many different reasons, but please just keep this in mind. This is coming from a person who really does love Anubias because I love it so much that I even created pins, little buttons that say I love Anubias, available at primetimeaquatics.com. But anyways, just keep that in mind as I go on and on about Anubias. But there's so many reasons. I hope at the end of this video you are either intrigued at the awesomeness of this plant or you love it almost as much as me. All right, let's get started. First, let's get the parameters, the numbers out of the way. With this aquatic plant, it's one of the great things about it is that it can deal with a lot of different water parameters. All of our parameters are different, right? So pH 5 to 8, we're at like an 8.2. All my varieties of Anubias do just great. Temperature, probably conservatively speaking, 70 to 85, I think is a good number of range that it will be very happy in. Like a lot of things, it likes kind of softer water, but it does great in our harder water. So really awesome, wide variety of water conditions that it will be a happy camper in. One of the greatest things about this plant is low light. So if you have no special lighting and you don't have CO2, which I don't have high fancy lighting in generally any of my tanks, and I don't run any CO2, Anubias is your guy because it doesn't require any high lighting. Will higher lighting get it to grow a little bit faster and maybe make the leaves a little bit stronger? Yes, but I've had absolutely no issues running them on just regular lighting that comes in a box kit or anything like that. They do really, really great. All right, so I came up with, I'd say maybe like 5 points that I'd like to cover to share how awesome this plant is. First, it is very, well, if I didn't mention before, this plant is referred to as an epiphyte. It is one of those plants that does not need to be planted into the substrate. The roots can just be out in the water, which makes it really great. I find it very easy to plant because you don't actually plant it into the substrate. You can attach it, and you can attach it in so many different ways. You can use super glue, yes. Cyanoacrylate is aquarium safe, fish safe. Believe it or not, once it's dry, it's all good. The plant will grow around it. The rhizome will continue to grow, produce new leaves. It's all good. You don't want to completely coat the rhizome or anything like that. I've got lots of videos. I'm going to throw them up there. I'm going to throw them into the description so you can check it out. I've done a lot of videos, especially on Anubias and attaching and all that good stuff. I have lots of different tricks too. Not only can you super glue something, an epiphyte, you can also tie it. You can wrap it with, a lot of people like fishing line or string. You can wedge it in between two different rocks. You can use things like this. That's right. It's these little hair tie things that you wear on your wrist. I do. And you can cut them into pieces and just use it to wrap on, because the great thing about Anubias and other epiphytes is after they've been attached kind of close to a rock or a driftwood, the roots will continue to grow on, and in no time they will, well, not no time, it's kind of a slow grower, but after a while the roots will grow around whatever it is on, because it's used to being in like rivers where it has to hold on to the substrate, which is really cool. And then you have the bonus of watching really cool roots grow onto your hardscaping, which I find really cool. So not only is it an easy plant to attach or to plant, it is also, I find, a very easy plant to find. You can go to your Petco, PetSmart. I find them at both of them because I do tend to go to both these stores rather frequently. They have all different types of varieties, usually in the tube plants, and you can get them online. Flip Aquatics is a channel sponsor for Primetime Aquatics, and they have a nice variety of different Anubias and any other online sellers. So you can really, swaps, fish clubs, they all have it, and they all have all different kinds. Number 3 is it is a very, I like the plant, and I think I was originally attracted to this plant because of the leaf structure. It's a very kind of a bold texture, especially in an aquarium. It gives a lot of weight to the plants. It's not a very thin, wispy plant, kind of, unless you get really tiny ones, but it's also very hardy. It has, the leaves are very, I don't know, they're kind of a little bit more firm than very thin, wispy plants like maybe your Java fern that's very thin, and very, very easy to propagate. I did a video on that. You wouldn't believe how easy it is to propagate. And even if, say, the worst thing in the world happens and a leaf falls off of your rhizome and you're like, oh no, don't worry, because if a leaf pops off of that rhizome, the rhizome will send a word, make more leaves. It's really the coolest thing in the world. Number 4, this is one of my favorite things about this awesome, wonderful plant, is not only, and this is not the only type of plant that can do this, but not only will it grow completely submerged in your aquarium, completely covered with water, but as long as the rhizome and the roots are under the water, it can grow immersed. The leaves will grow above the water, so that means it can be used. You can have plants throughout an aquarium that grow out. We have that, especially if you have driftwood. Maybe you like that sort of look. I do. I love when the driftwood comes out of the water. Well, so can Anubias. They will grow, the leaves will grow above the water. It looks really cool. And also you can use them in paludariums and vivariums. They're commonly used. And of course they come in so many different kinds, which leads me to the last category is it comes in so many different sizes. One of, I would say, if the betta is the gateway fish into the aquarium hobby, Anubias, I think, is and should be the gateway plant to the aquarium / aquatic plant realm, because it is so awesome. And I got suckered in to this hobby, this great hobby, for the aquascaping side. And the plant that really roped me in was Anubias nana Petite. It is so tiny. Let me show you how tiny. Tiny. There's about, oh, I don't know, 20 leaves on this little clump here. So super adorable. There's no other aquatic plant that's half as adorable as Anubias nana Petite, especially when it gets really, really tiny like this. I actually refer to this type as the micro. I don't know if there's an actual, like, I don't know how you actually designate something as micro, but this is pretty stinking micro. I have ones even smaller than this. And the great thing is, this is a slow growing plant. So if you do like tinier plants, you like to put your plants in, and however, you know, the size, if you put them in the foreground, the midground, or the background, they're going to be that appropriate size for quite some time before maybe you have to move them. Because don't be, this is one thing you need to keep in mind with the different sizes, and I'm going to go through some different types for different sizes. Don't be confused when you look and you buy maybe tissue culture, the tissue culture plants, because they're going to be very small. You need to do your research before you purchase these, because they can get very, very large. For example, if you get tissue culture gigantea, Anubias gigantea, and they're really tiny and cute, do your research, because they get very large, 18 to 24 inches. But that's on the opposite end of this little guy. The Anubias nana Petite would be the extra small variety. Now you also have small varieties, which I would consider maybe like the Anubias nana, which is about 5 to 6 inches tall, and let's see what else. Gold coin is about that same size. Then if you get up a little bit larger than that, maybe 6 to 7 inches, you have Anubias Congensis, otherwise known as Frazeri. I think they go by the same name. And then you have Anubias Frazeri, that I frequently find at Petco, in the tube plants. And I love this plant specifically for its roots, because they're very flowing, very draping roots, which a lot of aquatic plants are very beautiful just for their roots. Now, if you're looking for an Anubias for, instead of the foreground, which Anubias, depending on your size of tank, I love nano tanks, which this channel is small scape, specifically for, aimed for nano tanks, 20 gallons and smaller. So you have the Nana Petites, the Nanas in the foreground, and then maybe the midground you have some of the Congensis or Frazeri, something like that. And then in the background, if you're looking to get some larger plants or even ones that grow out of the water, whoo, they've got some beautiful ones. If Anubias Nana Petite is my favorite, if you wanted to know, yes, that is my favorite Anubias, if you can't tell. My second favorite is the complete opposite, Anubias gracilis, which is very similar to Hostifolia. It's got a kind of spade or arrowhead shaped leaf, really, really beautiful, love it. But if you get it this size, you're like, oh, that's really cute. It's gonna get really big. This one is probably 12, probably get 12 inches. And then also if you're looking for a large plant, especially coming out of the water, in our lowboy, we have Coffeefolia coming out of the water. This is a little baby Coffeefolia, and the great thing about Coffeefolia is the leaf is very interesting. It's very heavily ribbed and it's very dark green. Now, as I previously mentioned, the largest, at least the largest one that I know of, is the Anubias gigantea, which is 18 to 24 inches tall. This guy can reach, which is really cool, especially since the one that I got was like really, really tiny when he was a baby. He was so cute. Now again, uses for this plant, because a lot of different plants can have slightly different uses depending on what kind of fish you keep. They are really great, like the Anubias Nana Petite, these little guys. I really like to keep them in tanks that have shrimp, because the shrimp actually, they're really great farmers. They keep the plants really clean. They're very gentle because the shrimp are very tiny, just like these plants are very tiny. And I think the scale is really, really great. And obviously for nano tanks, especially if you were going to have, say, if you have a 1 gallon tank, which I've got one coming up, it's going to be really fun, and you're only going to have plants in there, maybe a snail or something, but no fish, Anubias Nana Petite, that's your guy, because it's so super tiny and adorable. Then if you get larger plants, or even the middle sizes like the Frazeris, or you have Anubias Nana, any of those, your bettas will love them, because not only can they go underneath them, but they can also rest on them. And I've had multiple bettas that just kind of like to lounge on a leaf. Now, if you really force me to, I suppose I will come up with some cons for this plant. First con is, if say you have only Anubias in a tank and your lighting is too high, yes, it can develop algae. So you do need to be careful that this plant does not get too high of light. So a lot of people who have Anubias in their tanks will have other plants in there that grow maybe a little bit faster, and they kind of help to use up the nutrients, because that's pretty much the only problem that I've ever had with Anubias, is that it can grow algae. The other thing with the con of it growing slowly is that it grows slowly. So if you're looking to get really fast growth and fill up your tanks with just maybe one plant, like some of the floating plants or the dwarf umbulias that just really like grow really fast, or hornwort, this is really not your guy. He's going to grow really, really slow. So one leaf can typically take weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to form a new leaf, which is fine for me because I don't really need to see massive amounts of growth. But keep in mind, it's easy to propagate. So if you have a longer stem, if you're willing to cut the rhizome, which I usually am, not a problem, because it will just grow more leaves. It's really cool. And the last con that I could possibly think of, if I absolutely had to, is it doesn't come in really any kind of colors. Like other plants, like the Cryptocorini, they come in the bronze and other kind of shades, different colors. Anubias really comes in green. But like the Congensis, that actually has, along the stem, can be slightly red. So you may get a little bit of color, but you can't go out and get yourself a red Anubias, because red Anubias Nana Petite would be really cool. But with that being said, keep in mind that the Anubias Coffeefolia is a very dark green. So you might, and then gold coin, if I didn't mention gold coin, if you had Coffeefolia and gold coin, which does kind of have like a very bright light green, almost a golden color, that's the name, that would be pretty cool. You could get different shades of green. So let me know, what is your favorite type of Anubias? And I'm dying to know, what was your very first aquatic plant that you ever got. Mine obviously was the Anubias Nano Petite, but I'm dying to know which one was your very first. And yeah, thanks so much for stopping by, spending some time here, and I will see you next time.